Awesome, we live. Today we're going to be talking about the comfort zone. So, success is not an easy procedure, and that's something that I learned very young in my life. When I started out after matric, I started out as a ShopRite Checkers cleaner, a ShopRite Checkers cashier, and I wondered to myself, what could I do? Because growing up, there was such great emphasis put in getting our matric certificate because it will potentially give us a better job. But when we do have that matric certificate, what did it actually mean in the greater scheme of life? And I questioned a lot of those things because while I was a cashier, I thought, okay, they've employed me for 3 days. What can I do with the rest of my time? And that's when I found a cleaning job. So I would clean offices, make tea, wash out bins, and all sorts of stuff around cleaning in an office. And that was for 2 different days. So now that I was working 5 days, I asked myself, what will happen for me to get out of where I am? And that for me was the grand answer of getting out of my comfort zone. And I sat for a while and wondered, so many people talk about getting out of your comfort zone. What does it actually mean? I was like, just tell me what happens when you get out of your comfort zone. What does that mean? And over life, I started realizing when we start pushing boundaries, we start getting into uncharted territory. We get into spaces that we never really knew existed, or maybe we may have heard that they existed, but we didn't really understand what it meant to us at that particular point in time. So, as I pursued life, having my 3 days as a ShopRite Checkers cashier and my 2 days as a cleaner, the thing I learned was if I build up enough courage to start reading up and seeing the things that I could do. I mean, back in the late 90s, we couldn't just flip up a phone and go onto the internet. We couldn't just open up a laptop and go onto the internet. Those that had computers in their homes at that time were very privileged and they were a lot more elite. We were at school and the exposure to a computer in 1996 was literally a green screen. So at that point, me asking that question was so valid in where we were back then in technology. Not that I'm saying it's not valid now, because right now you simply can go into or onto YouTube and type what happens when I get out of my comfort zone, or how do I get out of my comfort zone, which is a lot more simpler now versus back then. But nonetheless, I learned that if I had to build courage to get out of the zone that I knew, to get out of the comfort that I knew, yes, I was a cashier, yes, I was a cleaner, but what if I did something different? And that's when I made my hairband business. My first entrepreneurial gig, 1997, fresh out of school. And what I did was, all the long skirts that I wore, I cut them up, I made hairbands, and guess what? My target audience was the people that I would go to church with, because literally 90% of the congregation had long hair. And a lot of the ladies that had much shorter hair liked to wear it in a bun because they could manage it to get into a bun, but make it really pretty by putting on a hairband. And so I knew these are my people that are going to buy from me. But I had to build that courage up to say, what could I do different, and to actually do it, not just leave it there thinking about it, but by me actually physically taking that leap of faith. And the more I went on, sorry, in life, the more I learned that building your courage and learning something new and then taking that something new into action was an act of me getting out of my comfort zone. But as I'd done that in life, there's a lot of different levels that I had gone to in my life. And I remember coming home making this announcement: I would love to be an au pair. First, I needed to define in my household what is an au pair, because back in '97, that wasn't something that you just know. And so I was like, oh, an au pair is what we would call a babysitter. Yeah, but it's a full-time babysitter staying in somebody else's house. And my mother was like, okay. Okay, Jen, what are we going to do with that? My sister was like, okay, what are we going to do with this? And the more I would read, we'd be reading the newspaper, the more I would just try and find out information. I eventually, over a period of time, came home to say, I've got an early childhood development course that I want to do. This is how much money I've saved towards this particular cause. Right now, I just need to build up a coffer so that I can have bus fare going to and from because it's 10 weeks and it's full time. So I have to leave what I'm doing in order to do so, but I can't quite leave right now because I need to build up my coffers. And then I went on to explain all the things that I needed to do. I brokered deals between my mother and my sister, and eventually they were like, okay, cool. This is, you've met your end of the bargain. This is how we're going to help you. I did that early childhood development course. And while we were busy in the course, again, me and the newspaper, because the junk mail was the way we would actually get more information, right? I would I got into the junk mail and I was like, okay, where are the babysitting jobs locally in Cape Town? And that's how I got to taking my all pairing skill that I was learning in early childhood development into doing babysitting and a lot more constructive work around all pairing. And those, for me, I have found throughout my life, the more I was curious about something, I had to break that boundary of not knowing. So I got the education. And when I was in the education, I had to break that boundary of how am I going to get a job? And I had to work my way into it. And I'm sure by now you're seeing this common thread that we need to be curious about where we're going to in order to break these proverbial boundaries that have been set up on us. You know, go to school, get good grades, get a good job. There you get your matric certificate. Work dololo. Like it was so such an anticlimax. But the one thing that I learned in breaking all my barriers is the day that I hit rock bottom. The day we lost 5 million and we could actually comprehend that we'd lost 5 million rand. That was the day I knew what rock bottom actually looked like. And that's when I learned that when I hit rock bottom, it reveals my tolerance for risk. It reveals what am I going to do next. But you know what the most incredible thing is? Since I was a teenager, my action was to read up about it, learn, do. And that's what kicked in when I hit rock bottom. I read up about property investing. We went to the course, we did the training when we could least afford it. And I realized that there's nowhere to go but up because I've really hit rock bottom. I mean, who loses so much money? We did, but we had to learn from that. And I learned that when I understand what life is about, I can maneuver it. And as I maneuvered this space, I then started realizing my risk appetite actually grew after losing so much money because we'd already created the step ladder on getting out of the dwang, as I like to call it. So I want to leave you with this particular thought, right? Most people struggle financially because they don't know how to get out of their comfort zone. So wherever you are, with whatever you are doing, my question to you is, what are you struggling with? Because if you're really struggling financially, then you're potentially still stuck in your comfort zone. And I say that with all due respect because I've been there time and time again. And each time I had to learn what could I do better. While I was busy learning to be a property wholesaling, I asked myself, what else is there? I came across things online that I could do to earn money, a skill, a service. I started trading my time for money again. And the more I did, the more I realized becoming an entrepreneur is not about this beautiful blueprint that you're going to tick, you know, hit this tick box. It's all about understanding where are you going to go and how are you wanting to reinvent yourself. Because when I started out as an entrepreneur in 2017 full time versus where I am today, the dream has remained the same. However, the way, the process has changed because I needed to ask, if I'm stuck in my comfort zone in debt, I will die in debt. Do I want to die in debt? No. What should I do differently? And that's when I learned, when I get out of my comfort zone, I start learning new avenues in life and I start learning new things to do. And I want to say, you can do the same thing too.